Hi, in this video I'm going to help you to begin to understand your presentation audience so that you can begin to prepare with your examiner or assessor in mind. My name is Erica Williams. I've worked as a corporate coach, a corporate trainer, a university senior lecturer, and I've written a number of books. So if you watch my last video, we established that presentation is all about communication. It's about a relationship between the speaker, the presenter, and the audience, the listeners. And so it's really important for you as a presenter to begin to understand how listeners listen and how they pay attention to the message that you want to give in your presentation. So to get us kicked off, we're going to look at something called the audience memory curve, or the attention listening curve, which shows how listeners pay attention to a spoken message given over a certain period of time. This listening curve, when we're presenting, is certainly not desirable, but it is natural. And it is very useful to know how it works. When we know how it works, then we can begin to do things that address the problems and the issues that we see in the attention curve. So let's have a look at this graph. It's a simple line graph. The attention is shown on the vertical axis and the attention is shown along the horizontal axis. Now the time could be, we could go back to the 20-minute presentation, and the dotted line that you can see in the graph shows us how listeners keep their attention during the spoken communication. And as we can see, attention at the beginning of the communication tends to be very high. This could be the highest point during the presentation. And then after the beginning phase, attention tends to go down gradually, and then it will go down a little bit faster, and then there'll be a longer period of time where attention bottoms out, and then sometime towards the end of the presentation, the listener's attention begins to kick back in again and begins to rise to a higher point. Now this attention listening curve tells us certain things as presenters. And for me, there are three critical phases. And let's have a look at these three phases. So the first is the beginning phase. As presenters, we can more or less guarantee that listeners will be paying attention to what we're saying at the beginning phase. There's some research that shows that the start phase of a presentation should be somewhere between 90 seconds and 3 minutes. It shouldn't be too long. But it's worth really thinking about the starts of your presentation. If people are listening, then it's worth being absolutely confident and sure in getting your presentation off to a good start. Then equally, we can also see that the end phase of the presentation is quite important. Again, we can more or less guarantee that listeners are paying attention and they will take in our final words and our final message of our presentation. And we should, as presenters, we should take some time and trouble to prepare these finishes. Now the attention listening curve is also quite interesting because this also kicks into a theory of communication, and it's to do with primacy and recency. Now this is a pretty easy theory of communication. Primacy is basically the theory that says we tend to pay attention to, listen to, and remember the first things in communication. And recency says that we tend to pay attention to, listen to, and remember the last things that we hear in communication. So the attention listening curve is a good example of this. We've got primacy and we've got recency. And presenters should, you should pay attention to this. But we've got another critical phase, and this is this longer phase where if we don't do something as presenters, there's a very good chance that the attention of our listeners will drop to a low point and remain at a low point for a longer period of time. Now, this is clearly problematic because this will be in the information giving part of your presentation. And if you, as a presenter, don't do anything to bring in the attention of your listeners, then you're probably going to fail as a presenter. So what do good presenters do? Well, it's very simple. Basically, good presenters change the curve. So as presenters, we don't want our presentation to achieve the natural attention listening curve. What we want to do is keep raising the curve, get off to a good start, and to do things in the presentation that raise the curve up and have little peaks in the presentation right the way through to the end of our presentation. Now, when people talk about the skills and the techniques of presentation, this is what they're talking about. We use skills and techniques and devices, and we structure our presentation simply to change that curve. So let's come to structure. And what I would like to do in this video is just outline a very basic, simple technique, but a very effective technique to get us kicked off. And this is the technique of signposting. So what is signposting? Well, if you think about signposts are things that we see on the street when we're driving, for example. And when I see a signpost and I'm a driver, the signpost gives me certain information. The signpost can tell me where I am, how long I have to go, how long it is to my next destination, how long it is to my final destination. Signposts give me, as a driver, orientation and direction. And this is exactly what we do in presentations. So what we want to do with our material is, first of all, we want to structure it. And structure is really important because basically it's easier to pay attention to and listen to and remember structured information than it is to listen to unstructured random information. You probably know this already from your own listening. If somebody comes into a room and talks to you for an hour and they talk very randomly and you have no idea of where you're going to and where you've been to in the talk, then you will begin to lose attention. So structure will help you immediately to gain and to keep the attention of your audience. So a very good structure is basically the start and then topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, finish presentation. It's a simple structure, but it's very effective. So what's signposting? Well, at the end of every part of this structure, you basically give a verbal signpost. You tell the audience where they are and you tell them where they're going to. And these little verbal signposts, they have the ha-ha effect, this attention effect. And if we come back to primacy and recency, we're creating recency and primacy again in the presentation, which is a very positive thing. So what are these signposts? Well, if English isn't your first language, linguistically, they're very, very, very simple. So all you have to do is say things like, so that was it for the start of my presentation, and now I'd like to begin with the first point. That's all I wanted to say about topic 1. Now let's turn to topic 2. So I've outlined the prospects in topic 2. Now let's move on to topic 3. Now that's all I wanted to say about topic 3, and that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I'd like to move on to my summary and conclusions. Something like this. It's very simple, but very effective because, as I say, all the time you're creating this ha-ha effect. So good presenters, you know your audience, You do something to change that curve. You get off to a good start and a good finish. You structure and you signpost your presentation. These are simple first steps again to giving your presentation, but they will be extremely effective. So thanks for listening. If you would like to check out my worksheet on first steps in preparing a presentation that you need to do for an assessment or an exam, please check out the link in the description below to the Etsy workshop. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.